Good morning, everybody. I'm Ryan Busch, publisher of today's Campus magazine, and I'm honored today to be able to have some time with Dr. Bill Pepicello, who's president of University of Phoenix, and Barry Feierstein, who is the chief business operating officer of University of Phoenix as well. And we're in this a beautiful new facility for the university. So, gentlemen, thank you this morning for talking with us. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the facility we're in right now?
Well, as we walk through here, this is a state-of-the-art, the John Sperling Center for Educational Innovation. Okay. And on the first floor here, we have what we call our Classroom Without Boundaries, which we hope will be a prototype and a model for higher education. We also have a hallway which shows our history, so that people can get a little feeling for the context of how the university has come along.
So, in the interest of full disclosure, I've had a long relationship with the University of Phoenix. I'm a former employee, and I still teach occasionally. So it's been, a really fascinating journey for me to watch the changes at the university over the last several years. And I thought maybe, since we're in this new facility, you could tell me a little bit about how the university is changing right now.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about the academics, and then I'll ask Barry to talk about some of the new initiatives. Certainly what you're seeing here is a repositioning of the university. We have spent the last couple of years actually considering how we can best serve our students across the country. And as you probably know, we have recently revised our physical footprint across the country. And what we ultimately want to do is have centers like this be flagship campuses across the country where we can ultimately come to a system of hybrid delivery, so that online and classroom-based education can occur seamlessly for our students. The other thing we've been doing is repositioning our curriculum. We have put in place a 3-week free orientation for students who have 24 credits or fewer to transfer in. So what we're trying to do is maximize students' ability to succeed when they get here. And we have, in addition to that orientation, put in place a first-year sequence of courses that are designed to help students have success early on and understand exactly what their educational journey is going to be. Now, Barry has brought into this a whole other dimension in our education to careers initiative. And Barry, why don't you talk about that?
Sure. What we realized a couple of years ago when the economy fell off was that we had to do more to help students, and so many students today are having a difficulty connecting their career aspiration. I want to change my life somehow. Maybe I'm unemployed or underemployed, or maybe I need to do something more in my company, so I want to go back to school. And that was enough in the past when the economy was robust and a graduate was fairly assured of a job. It's not the case today. Such a large percentage of students, when they graduate college, aren't able to find a job in their field of choice for up to 6 months now. So what we've done is we've said we can do better. And what we've said is, for our students, which are working adults, how can we help them connect that career aspiration through the higher education experience to something on the back end? And what we've done is built I'll call it a pathway, where we've actually worked with companies and said, tell us what you're looking for in a graduate. And then we've built Phoenix Career Services, which helps those companies tap into our student body. And we've taken what those companies have said to us, usually using competencies, and we've mapped the competencies to our curriculum, so that when a student says, I want to change my life, I want to do something different, I want to go back to school, we're helping them with a series of upfront assessments, helping them identify their skills, where their interests are, where the jobs are, and where they may be, how those may map to a degree program, how that degree program prepares them for the competencies that companies are looking for, and then we're bringing those companies to our students and connecting them. So it's essentially a much more purposeful journey and really all geared for the working adult.
So, this is a beautiful center here, and as you said, this is something of a centerpiece for the way you envision campus operations existing. Now we know that there's been a big change for University of Phoenix with the campus operations. So tell me a little bit about how this is kind of different from where you were, and how the relationship with talking to businesses, developing career centers, how does that all fit together for you?
Sure. While the majority of our students choose to study with us in an online modality, our ground campuses, this being a prototype, our ground campuses are essential. And they're essential for a couple of reasons. One, there's still a significant segment of the population that enjoys to learn and study together in a traditional classroom. Secondly, our goal is to transform the campus from just a learning center to much more of a career and a community center. How can we bring local businesses that we have relationships with in community groups that we may not have relationships with? How can we bring them to our campus and make the connectivity between education and community and careers? So as an example, we're working with community colleges. We're working with community colleges to help path their graduates who have an AA or AAS degree to a bachelor's degree or beyond. And since we all live in the same community, we all work with similar employers, we share some faculty, how do we work together? So that's part of the future vision of a campus and what a center like this is built for.
So I mean, this is actually, I think, a very non-traditional look to it. It's really, I think, a representative idea of the sort of innovation and disruptive innovation that the university's been known for. Is there something about the style to the way that this is set up, or the relationships that you're having to the community? Because it seems very open and collegial in terms of how people are able to work together. What's the premise behind that?
Well, I think you've actually almost answered your own question there. It is designed to be open. It's designed to be user friendly. It's a place where both our classroom-based and online students come to work. Ultimately, we hope it will be, with a number of stations, sort of a community center. We hope that eventually, whether it's businesses or whether it's the community at large, will come here and see this as a place where they can come for technical assistance, for research, and actually just to find out more about how the university interacts.
And the layout's it's so open, it's meant to be collaborative. So much of business today is collaborative in teams, and whether informal teams or formal teams, it's designed to facilitate teamwork and collaboration, and that's why you see the layout much like you do.
I have to tell you, it inspires me when I'm looking at it to think very much of sort of venture capital startup style company offices where people are working in many different places, and there's not that sort of traditional cube-based structure about it all, or the traditional classroom layout of people, on one side and an instructor on another.
And that's a good point. Part of this is we hope to bring higher education into the 21st century, to make this more like people's life experience is in general, because education has always been one of those sort of separate experiences for folks, and what we want to do is really integrate it into their lives.
And that's essentially what we've done with our concept of bringing career planning forward. It's not enough anymore to have this linear pathway where you come to school, pursue your degree in a classroom or online, and then when you get to the end, then decide, what am I going to do with it? So it's that collaboration both in the learning environment and collaboration with the business environment to say, how do we integrate this back from the very beginning so that our students have the best chance for success when they graduate?
I think, as you talk about this sort of non-traditional working environment, one of the other things that's, I think, important to think about is the way that the University of Phoenix has traditionally grown out of itself, and that has been serving what I think you call non-traditional students. And these are usually the adult students. Is that more in line as well?
Well, it's interesting that what we call non-traditional students now represent about 75% of all potential undergraduates in the country, and they tend to be a little older. They tend to be working full or part-time. Many of them have families, and more, our students are first-generation students, which means they're the first person in their families to ever go to college. So that has, as we walk down our history aisle here, that represents a change in who our students have been over the years and what it means to be a working adult. We're standing here between 1970 and 1980,
right.
and at that time, a working adult was someone who already had some college, who had been in the workforce for some time, and who needed to alter their career course or perhaps get a promotion. And what we've seen over the years, as we look down into the 90s and the 2000s
right.
there, is that the whole student population base has shifted, as has the United States demographics, from that person who already had some college and was working to the person that I just described. And as what we have seen is as that has changed, the university has had to reinvent itself. Hence our orientation course that we talked about, our first year sequence, and some tools that Barry has developed so that people understand better what their journey is going to be like.
Yeah, the tools Bill's referring to, we've just launched, and we're very excited about them. And they're designed pre-enrollment to help students think through where are their interests, what might they be good at, and depending on where they live, what's the job market, at least today, for what they're interested in their city, or if they want to move somewhere else in the country, what's the job market there? The really exciting part, though, is what's going to happen in the classroom. And we're taking a series of assessments, and we're actually infusing those assessments into our curriculum. So students, as part of their curriculum, will build what we call a career plan. And it's really the roadmap for their journey and how their courses will help them build the competencies I referred to earlier that they'll need in order to be best prepared for a job in the future. So it's a very different orientation than before.
Why don't you talk just a little bit about the financial part of the journey, Barry?
So there's really, to be successful, it's not enough anymore given the cost of education. It's a national problem. So what we believe is there's two parts to success here. The first is the academic journey that we've just been describing. The second, though, is a complementary journey. It's the financial journey. So you can be very successful in your academic journey, graduate with a terrific degree, and even secure a great job. But if you haven't made wise financial choices along the way, you may have too much debt, not be able to service that debt, and really destroy your future. So what we believe is there's two parallel complementary paths, the academic journey and then the financial journey. So what we built is something we refer to simply as a financial planning tool. And what it does, though, it's a nuance, but it's really important. Instead of thinking through how you're going to pay for your education one class or one semester at a time, what we do is have the student prepare the plan for how to pay for their entire degree, net of any transfer credits they bring in, on a very personalized way. So, for example, our algorithm, our series of questions we prompt them through, ask them, do you work for a company? Do you have tuition assistance? Is that company you work for a partner of ours, and perhaps you're eligible for a tuition discount? Do you have your own personal cash that you'll be able to contribute towards your education? And then we fill up literally stacked bars, and the gap, the piece that's not funded, is usually filled in with federal student loans. The key point, though, is after they fill out their plan, and it could be a 2-year plan or a 4-year plan, we aggregate up all of their borrowing that they've told us they need to take, and then we estimate the monthly repayment amount upon graduation. So we help them understand, is this repayment amount in your plan consistent with your academic journey and your personal budget, so that when you get to the end of the road, you have the degree, you have the job, and you have a financial commitment that's manageable.
You know, the idea here is that we don't often talk about higher education as an investment similar to buying a house or a car. And we would never buy a house or a car without knowing what the monthly payment was going to be.
Right.
And yet we don't think about higher education in those terms, although it's probably the second largest investment a person makes other than a home. So I think what we're trying to do is get people to think about, okay, this is how education is going to fit into my life, and here's how I'm going to repay it over the long term, as opposed to saying, well, I'm going to pay it semester by semester and then I'm done, which is rarely the case.
I think that's a real, I mean, we have a lot of financial services people in our readership, certainly, and this is, I think, a very unique approach to looking at it. It reminds me, frankly, of, I can't think of the company name, but they do the commercials with that green line that you follow.
Oh, yes.
Right, so it's how you pay for your investments over that time period, how you stay on track and accomplish that end goal. And you're doing that in terms of the education process. That's really a unique step. But do you know of any other groups out there thinking that way in terms of universities?
There are a few technical schools that we know of that have adopted this approach, and we applaud them. We hope others copy and follow us, because this is good for students across the country, regardless of the school they go to. And frankly, if you're borrowing federal student loan dollars, it's good for the country and good for taxpayers. There's no certainty. When you enroll in school, there's no certainty you'll graduate. It's a lot of work, and there's no certainty that you'll get the job you want. What we're trying to do is remove as much of the uncertainty as possible. That's why we announced a tuition freeze recently. Let's remove the uncertainty for future tuition increases so that you can build your plan and understand what those costs really will be.
So guys, in terms of this series that we've done with people, we've interviewed some of the largest universities, colleges around there. We like to learn a little bit more about the leadership behind the thinking of these programs. So I think it'd be great if we can maybe sit down together and kind of talk a little bit about your personal backgrounds as well.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that.
Great. Thanks for showing me around the building here. Now we've sat down in what you call the classroom without boundaries, and it's a very it looks like a very flexible classroom environment with a lot of options for people to kind of break out, do different things, use different types of technology to present what they're doing. So this seemed like the perfect environment to sit down and talk a little bit about the minds behind doing all of this. So, Bill, we know you because you're in the forefront of everything. You've been doing that for a while now. So I thought maybe I would start with asking Barry a little bit about your background, how you came into the university.
Sure. I've been here about 2.5 years, and I came here because prior to this position, University of Phoenix was a client, and it was a client because I formerly ran sales and marketing at Sallie Mae, the largest student lender in the country. And when the FELP loan program was shut down, I decided that I wanted to stay in the education space. I think you could say I was bitten by the education bug, and I really had a passion for what we talked about earlier on the consequences of student borrowing. So I got to know some of the folks here at the university while I was at Sallie Mae, and we thought there would be an interesting fit here to come in and bring some of that expertise in. So I have been here, again, 2.5 years, and the first project I had was helping re-energize to rebuild our business-to-business relationships, because the university started serving working adults, degree completers, firefighters, policemen, and as we grew, there was so much demand. While that piece continued, it was just dwarfed by the massive surge of consumers coming to us directly.
Okay, great. When you're looking at coming in from outside of the university, Bill, you've been here for quite a while now. How long have you been with the university?
16 or 17 years.
16 or 17 years, and I know you certainly have a background beyond that, but you're a recent convert to working with the university. When you are looking as a businessman at different businesses, coming from a different business in the same industry, into this, what has been your impression coming in?
It's actually in a really easy transition because both were mission-based organizations. So while at Sallie Mae, we helped students achieve their educational goals, their dreams, through educational finance. And what I found when I talked to the folks here at the University of Phoenix, they were in exactly the same business, with exactly the same mission, helping students achieve their dreams through education. So it was just the flip side of the coin, moving from the financing of education side to the providing of education side. And I think some of the things that I was able to bring to the table is that financing perspective, which was the background behind the building of the education, the financial planning tool we talked about earlier.
So, Bill, when you came into the role of president, I think that was, if I recall, a kind of a turbulent time with the company. You had a change from one president of Apollo Group to another president of Apollo Group, and there's a lot of shifts going on. There's a lot of growth happening. Tell us a little bit about your early history in the presidency and what you found coming in, and how you've led the organization to where we are right now.
Well, to say I've led it is probably an overstatement. I've got a great team that Barry sits on that really have helped take us to where we are. But yeah, certainly I came at a time of great transition, both at Apollo Group and here at the university. And it was a time when the external factors were beginning to change. We began to see the economy slow down. We began to see a really aggressive move on the part of students towards online education for those students who were coming. And we began to see competition increase across the country as online became more popular. And so a lot of the turbulence has really focused on repositioning the university in the last several years to make sure that we can continue to serve our student population, because through all the turbulence and all the change, the one thing that has not changed is the mission of the university and who we serve. It's interesting that while our student body has changed, the focus and the mission of the university has not, which is to provide access for those students who might not otherwise have it, and to try to reinvigorate the middle class. So it's been a constant effort to reposition our curriculum, to reposition our support services, so that we can continue to fulfill that mission.
How do you feel it's gone so far?
I think it's going remarkably well. I would, given the fact that we now have over 700,000 alumni, I think we are, in that regard, we're fulfilling our mission. And certainly as we reposition ourselves now to have facilities like the one we're sitting in across the country, I think we're poised for even more success.
Bill makes an interesting point about the alumni. We have a program called Alumni Mentors. We started about 1.5 years ago. We have 40,000 alumni who have signed up voluntarily to be mentors to current students. It's a 6-month program. We match up students with an alumni, a mentor, in their field of study, in the career they want to be at. And it's tremendous. We're signing up over 800 a week. And they're not compensated for this. They do it for the love of doing it, which really is reflective of this mission-based culture here. I've never in my career seen any institution or organization that has such a passionate group of employees, whether it's staff or faculty, that are just committed to helping students. Despite all the change we've been through and all the change we're going through, that hasn't wavered. And Bill and I have spent the last couple of weeks traveling around the country talking to our people. And it's just remarkable. It's just remarkable, the commitment to serving students. And that, I believe, is the secret sauce here, is that despite all the other distractions, despite all the changes, all the regulation, all the competition, we just keep our eye focused on doing what's right for the student. And that's the mantra here. If it's right for the student, do it. And really, that's part of our core values, and it really guides us as we make decisions about how to proceed.
I think it's interesting, the alumni component, because for the traditional university, the university that's one might equate to Ivy League style campus-based communities, alumni are a huge part of those communities. They support them financially, and that's something that is a little bit different for a university like University of Phoenix, is that you're not going to call the alumni and ask for donations. No. So you're asking now the alumni to share their time and experiences as part of being a bigger part of the community.
And what's interesting is you make a good point, and that was part of John Sperling's original philosophy, was that we would never ask alumni for any money. That led us to be a little behind the curve in developing an alumni association, since mostly they are fundraising. Right. But what we've discovered through our efforts now at mobilizing the faculty is they are more than willing, or the alumni rather, they are more than willing to give back. They really want to come back and be involved, which is very gratifying for us.
And what we found with our alumni is we now have alumni chapters springing up around the country. We do alumni homecoming events around the country. And what we found is, as the university has matured and grown, and as our alumni base has kept increasing, more and more we're finding alumni in hiring positions across the country with companies. So as we built up what we call our workforce solutions team, that's the team that's building relationships with companies, trying to understand what their hiring needs are and bringing those needs back into the curriculum. We're encountering more and more of our alumni and building in the connectivity and helping our alumni, for example, like all schools do, who need to change jobs or perhaps have been laid off from a job, tapping into the services that we now offer. So it really is completing the circle, and that's a big change for us.
Well, no, let me ask this question, and I certainly am speculating about this all, but Phoenix Connect was a pretty recently released idea, and that is a social network, right? Is that a good way to describe it? Set inside of the university's learning management systems, connecting people beyond just a single classroom environment, creating that overall sense of community. Is there a relationship to things like Phoenix Connect and the mentorship programs and those ideas as well?
Yeah, there is, and I'll give you a couple of examples of how that internal social network operates. So yes, so if you're taking an economics class and it's midnight and you don't understand something, there's probably someone somewhere in the globe or in a different time zone that's online in that course, so you can reach out to someone that way. It's really a virtual classroom on steroids. Second thing what we're finding is that it allows our students to connect with other students who have similar interests. So I think I want to be a finance major and I want to work at an institution in New York City. Is there anyone else out there who's done that or is considering doing that, and how do I form that social network? The third is around companies. So as we've reinvigorated our corporate connectivity, it's really gratifying and it's actually very exciting for current students to be able to tap into other students who also work at their company, perhaps in a different city, and build that informal network outside of the university. So what we found is that the uses of the internal network have actually been far greater than we thought they would be. Originally it was designed for sort of academic connectivity, and we're finding that it has career connectivity and social connectivity outside of the university.
Well, it seems like there's there's a wonderful model out there, a couple wonderful models about the way people connect, and certainly one in particular I can think of that relates very much to career and networking. And with what did you say, 700,000 plus alumni?
Right.
You have a huge community right there of people out in the job, in the workforce right now, working, not working, looking for things, being able to help and assist. Are these students and the alumni really the biggest advocates for the university in the end?
They are ultimately the face of the university. I just did a graduation last week here in Phoenix, and I always remind the students as they go out that they represent the quality of the university. They are the face of the university, and they need to understand that they're part of an enormous network of people who have the ability to affect the United States.
One of the things we're working on is, and it doesn't exist today, it's part of our future planning, is how do we create more of a lifetime learning model for our alumni? Because as an example, when I graduated from business school, social media didn't exist. So there are many others out there like me who are having to come up to speed on all this rapidly evolving technology. So as a university, how do we help our alumni stay current on topics like social media? And we have an alumni network, we have the alumni database, there's connectivity back and forth. How do we be of continuing value to our graduates as they progress through their careers? And that's something that we're actively working on today.
So, I mean, for the foundation of the university, John Sperling's initial foundation of the university had so much to do with what we now call the non-traditional student. So the question I have for both of you is really, how is John's vision still present in the university, and what is your vision inclusion in that? How much is it? Is it 2 parts John, 1 part Bill and Barry? How does the ratio work these days?
I think the vision is all John. And the room we're sitting in is representative of his spirit. Certainly, he revolutionized higher education in the 70s when he founded University of Phoenix. He revolutionized it again in 1989 when we started online, and people said it was a fad, it won't last. Well, that turned out not to be true. revolutionized it again with the first virtual library in higher education, which people said was a fad and wouldn't last. We took all of our course materials and put them online and made them available to all of our students in early 2000s, which people, again, including publishers, thought was a fad. And where you're sitting now is that, I think, representative of the next phase of reinventing higher education, where from this classroom that we're sitting in, we can teach a course simultaneously here and in Yuma, which we actually are doing now, using e-beam technology, which is essentially some really cool stuff that lets you, for instance, project a PowerPoint onto the wall here, right on the PowerPoint, if you're an instructor, then save those changes and actually mail them out to the students. And you can do the same thing in Yuma as you're doing sitting here in this classroom. So the people who are remote are actually part of what's happening. They're not observers. They're in it. All the walls here are writable, as are the tables. In fact, the tables, after you write on them, you can flip them up and they become a chart.
Whiteboard,
yeah.
Right.
So it's that sort of spirit that comes from John that we embody. And I think the education and careers is a piece of that.
Yeah, I agree. Again, having only been here 2.5 years, I can tell you that the culture here is one of serving students first, risk-taking and innovation. And internally we use the phrase reinventing education again, because it is again. And Dr. Sperling's presence is felt. There are still regular meetings with him. He's very involved, and I think it gives us all a sense of confidence and inspiration to be able to say, let's look into the future, let's look around the corner. For me personally, there was tremendous reaffirmation of his vision with the outpouring of the MOOCs recently. So even a few years ago, there was still lots of noise, lots of press about questioning the validity, the efficacy of an online education platform. Dr. Sperling pioneered that here starting in 1989. And now, every premier research institution in the country has adopted an online learning modality. So it's very reaffirming to us that we were on the right direction. As Bill said, we were leading innovation, and we believe our Education and Careers Initiative and our financial planning linkage, the two of those, are the next big step forward for the university.
Before we started filming this section of the interview, we were talking a little bit about higher education as being a single thing, higher education, with many different types of institutions under it. And we've had that philosophy as a magazine of trying to tell the story of higher education at large and focus in on those things. If either of you found yourself in a university not like the University of Phoenix, do you feel you'd still have the same sort of leadership style and take on how to help students right now, or do you think that it would be modified by the type of institutions you were in?
Well, I come from a different kind of higher education institution. I was a research professor for 20 years at University of Delaware, Temple University, University of the Pacific in California, and had some leadership roles in those institutions. And it's very different. While higher education in general is concerned with students and student success, the model is not really not really focused on who the student is today. Because we talked about the fact that 25%, only 25% of students have that traditional residential, come right from high school into higher education experience. The other 75% look much more like University of Phoenix students. And higher education in general has not yet made that adaptation that we are. So yeah, my leadership style would certainly be different at one of those institutions, because many of them do not have a mission to innovate or grow. And I'm not being critical, that means simply the way that sector is. Whereas here, one of the things that attracted me here those many years ago was that I really saw on a daily basis how it was changing people's lives, because the people who come to us would not have any other recourse.
So with that in mind, then, one of the things I think we try to foster in our articles and our work is some level of sharing. What can you learn from, if you're at a community college, you're at a career college, you're at Harvard or Yale, you're at University of Phoenix. What are the types of lessons that you would share to other leaders, regardless of where they are in terms of the system of higher education in the United States?
Oh. Well, why don't you start? You have a different perspective than I on that, coming from outside.
I think the lesson that is the common thread among all schools, regardless of type, is taking care of the student, and I believe that exists universally. When we look at the University of Phoenix, for example, if there's 20 million students in higher education in this country, with us having 300,000 plus students, it's less than 2% of the market. So we recognize here that we're a very small piece of the larger market, and yet there are some things we do here that I think can be universally applied. So, for example, I believe, having visited many of those schools in my prior life, and having a son who graduated from a quote traditional school back on the East Coast, I think that the economy has fundamentally changed. And the days of just going to school and getting a liberal arts degree, as I did and Bill did, those journeys, the typical residential journeys, are fine and will continue and should continue. But with the reality of the job market today and the reality of competition globally, there needs to be a bit more of that planning of what will I be doing with my degree when I graduate, especially if a student is in a position where they'll be taking on debt for that education, regardless of what school they go to. So the worst situation is someone goes to an elite traditional four-year school, graduates with a terrific degree, and then flounders because they don't know what to do with it, and then if they do have debt, that's a bad situation for the students. So I do think a more purposeful journey, regardless of the school. In some schools it's easier than others. Some are more geared to careers, and some are less geared to careers. And so I think there's a continuum there. It's not a prescription, more of a continuum and a realization that, and perhaps the best way to describe it is, if a student at any school is finding the career office at the end of their journey, it's probably a mistake.
So if there's an outcome that's thought about at the beginning of the journey by both the school and the student together, that's a good lesson.
It is, and it doesn't have to be prescriptive, and it doesn't have to be something that's locked in where you agree that you will absolutely be a political science major and go to law school, but much more of being cognizant of the fact that school is, you're there to learn, you're there to do something different with your life, and that will result in some outcome, some path for you. So just to be thinking about that path of what will I be doing in the future, and being open to different options, but thinking about it so that you're not first thinking about it when you hit the graduation window.
And I think to follow up on that, if I were going to give a perspective or advice to other leaders in higher education, it would be to look at the external factors that are impinging on higher education today, and then look at your mission. If you look at the community colleges, I think they have a noble mission, and we love working with community colleges. In fact, in many ways their mission is consonant with ours. But I think as the ability to expand the reach of higher education becomes more prevalent, I think all institutions need to say, am I making decisions that are mission driven? And if not, do I need to either make different decisions or do I need to change my mission? And I think that's part of what higher education needs to do as it reevaluates its position in society right now.
So you sit with the mission on your desk and think to yourself, when I'm making the decision, does this follow the mission that we have here right now?
Yes.
And that's our core decision-making tool.
It actually is. When Barry sits on my cabinet, obviously, and there are 8 or 10 of us, and as we sit, we have many opportunities and many great ideas that come to us. But the first filter is always, okay, does this go to the mission?
So part of our mission is to provide access to education. We're an open access institution. But within that mission, over the last few years, some of what we've been talking about this morning is that we needed to, inside of the mission, do a better job for our students because of external factors, the economy, debt loads. So within the mission, not removing open access. How do we make sure the access that we provide and the education we provide is more relevant, more purposeful, and results in better outcomes for students? So that's a little bit of a nuance I wanted to share.
Quick questions, quick thoughts. I wanted to get both of your opinions just personally about. Bill, what makes you most happy at this stage?
What makes me most happy right now is as I look at the work that the university is doing, as I see the direction that we're about to take, some of the new tools that Barry talked about today, it really makes me happy to think that we are doing the right thing for our students. We've made some hard decisions in that regard, but I think they were the right decisions.
What about you, Barry? What makes you most happy?
I'll give you a real specific example. What makes me most happy is impacting people's lives positively. Less than 2 months ago, there was a student of ours in the Minnesota area who was about 20 credits away from her bachelor's degree in the School of Allied Health. Unemployed, single mom, unemployment insurance ran out. She reached out to us for help. Turns out we recently made an investment in a company that does distance career coaching, and we're infusing career coaching into our system. So we hooked this student up with one of our career coaches, helped her tweak her resume, prepare for an interview she had at a local hospital. She had the interview, she got the job. Was it a job in her field of choice? No, she doesn't have her degree yet. But was it a job in healthcare? Yes. Was it a job with a local employer? Yes. And does it now qualify her to be on the list with higher preference as she's an employee to perhaps secure a job in her field of study when she graduates? Yes. Her note back to us saying, "Thank you, you've changed my life," is what drives me.
All right, last question for both of you. Where do you see things in the next 5 years for yourself, Bill?
In the next 5 years, I hope that I'll see come to fruition all the things that we've been planning and are starting this year and next year. So I'm looking forward to the next 5 years as being more hard work, but I think a lot of positive results.
Barry?
I would echo that and just say that I think we as a university have, beyond our current mission to students, have a broader responsibility in higher ed in the U.S. And I think we can help in our sector lead the way to help students connect that career goal and changing their lives through education. So over 5 years, I hope we can start to influence that conversation so that more and more students will make wise financial decisions and make wise academic decisions.
Great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day for this. I know you're both incredibly busy, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bill Pepicello, Barry Feierstein. I'm Ryan Busch for today's Campus magazine, and thank you so much for watching today.